Hello and hi. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Chandler. I'm very excited to have you here at the Film Music House during the Sundance Film Festival here 2021. We are doing this keynote speaker series during the festival because we wanted to highlight composers that had fantastic films that have screened at Sundance Pass. And Mychael Danna is no exception. So I'm very, very excited to introduce our next keynote speaker, Mychael Danna. Come on and join us. Hey, Bert, it's so cold in Park City.
It is. Yeah, I just came in off the hills, did a couple runs, and
Yeah. Do you
yeah,
prefer Deer Valley or Park City?
I mean, you can go from one to the other. So I just like ski the whole thing all day.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow. And I love the fire behind you, super cozy.
Yes, it is super cozy. It's too bad that I'm, in LA and it's actually, 85 degrees outside. I'm starting to sweat here, but anyway, great to
Well,
be here. Really excited that the tradition can continue. Even in this virtual world. But yeah, really great that you guys are doing this.
Well, we're really grateful that you could do the Q&A with us. This is great. I'm really happy. So for those in the audience that don't know Mychael, here's a little bit about him. Mychael Danna is a Canadian-born composer for film and television. Of his many awarded achievements, he's received an Academy Award, Golden Globe, and Primetime Emmy Award. Known for his evocative blending of non-Western traditional with orchestral and electronic music, his noteworthy films include Life of Pi, Moneyball, Little Miss Sunshine, and my personal favorite, Monsoon Wedding. Now, I don't know if I've told you this in person or not, but Monsoon Wedding was the very first score soundtrack that I ever purchased. So it's like my gateway into learning about film music rather than like song albums, which is what I, of course, grew up on.
That's amazing. Well, I'm honored that I helped drag you into this world.
Yes.
But yeah, and that was an amazing experience. That was one of I found, and I don't know if other composers have this, but I found that there's often these weird fatalistic linings up of your real life and your film life, and there's been a few really notably weird ones, and Monsoon Wedding was one of those because that was 2001, and Mira actually didn't, and I'd worked with her before, and she'd said, "Oh, I'm doing this little film, and it's all going to be songs. Like we're not going to need you." So I wasn't even expecting to do it, and then she kind of called last minute, went, "Okay, you know what? We actually do need score." And weirdly enough, I was getting married that year to my wife, who's of Indian extraction, and we were going to India to buy Indian wedding clothes and all the outfits and all the stuff that you need for
Wow.
an Indian wedding. And Indians are very frugal, and they've found that it's actually cheaper to fly all the way to India and buy all this stuff and bring it back. So my wife told me, I think we had a couple of robes from various hotels in India that we might have accidentally taken too. But anyway, so it just was so bizarre that it ended up to be this moment where Mira said, like, I need this music. And I was like, well, actually, I'm going to India like in 3 weeks. I think it was literally 3 weeks away to do all this shopping. We already have our tickets and everything. And like, I'll record the score there while I'm there. Because I was actually going to be kind of bored. My wife would be doing all the shopping and I'd be dragged around like a little boy with his mom as on her shopping trip. And so it turned out that I had 3 weeks to write the score, and then we went to India, and Mira was there, and we recorded the score. And I all day for those 3 weeks I wrote all day, and then at night when it was daytime in India I would be on the phone, because that's how you communicated in 2001, calling studios, calling players, trying to get things lined up. And classic Indian style, of course, half the players were very cagey. yeah, I might be available. And, yeah, it was all very nerve wracking, but as it all lined up perfectly, it all fell into place. Everyone showed up. There's another funny story from that where it really taught me a lot about India, but also about how things just work out. The opening music that you hear is the band, that kind of crazy semi out of tune band playing the theme that I wrote. But what that is in Indian weddings, they have this weird, it's kind of a descendant of the British military marching bands that would have been there. But of course, the Indians, like they do with everything, embraced it, took it over, and made it their own. They play Indian popular songs for weddings with this marching band. And it's just strange as all these Western instruments, but playing Indian music. And so I knew, it's called Monsoon Wedding, I knew I had to somehow work that in. So I hired these guys, this wedding band, to come in and play. And we had a session booked from 10 till 1. And 10 o'clock comes, no one shows up. 10:30, 11. The copyist shows up at 11. It's like, okay, I'm ready to start copying. It's like, go copying? What? Like, what do you mean? It should have already been copied. The players are late. Players roll in. He starts copying at 11. The players roll in at 12, and we have till 1.
Wow.
And we get it all done. Like they just went, oh yeah, and played it. And just like the first time they played it, it was just, they nailed it. And yeah, that's how things happen in India. And it really helps you to, if you end up working there, it's good to know that story and just know that everything will work out. But it's probably not quite the way you expected it. But yeah, so that's the funny story about Monsoon Wedding, that I was working on a film about Indian weddings in the same exact time that I was having an Indian wedding. So
That's incredible.
Yeah,
And
very odd.
yeah, so if any of you haven't seen this film, please go see it. It's a great film. Music's awesome. I think the track that you were talking about, if anybody wants to go to Spotify and listen, is called Bharat.
You're right.
Yeah. When I was prepping for this Q&A, and I was just recollecting that that was the first soundtrack CD that I like purchased deliberately. I was like, I remember that track specifically because it's just so wild. It's a great tune. And so I was really happy to listen to that in kind of preparation for this. Took me back. Well, so obviously you have a strong affinity to India because we have this film, we have your family life, we have Life of Pi. What is it about the country and culture that kind of calls to you?
That would be a really, that's probably for somebody else to figure out. But I grew up in very homogeneously Protestant, white, suburban Toronto. And kind of as I was a teenager, so as a kid, everybody was like, a Catholic was considered exotic. Like you literally went, that girl's a Catholic. Oh, really? Like that's where I grew up. But as I became a teenager, the Canadian government, under Pierre Trudeau, the father of our present prime minister, but this whole multicultural kind of design came into being, and it became a conscious, mandate to welcome as many cultures in, and as opposed to the United States, where it's called melting pot, it's more of a mosaic. We want people to come in, keep your culture, do your thing. That way we get Vietnamese food and Szechuan, and we've got Indian food over here and Ethiopian. And so all of a sudden, within about 10 years, the culture really changed dramatically. It suddenly went from like in my memory, it was like black and white went to color. And so there was suddenly all this, the people, cultures, music, art, film, food from all over the world. And so when you sat in a subway car or a bus, suddenly the faces were all from all over the world. And it was a really positive thing. It was a very, it was something that and I still think it works really well in Canada. I think one of the better places in the world for kind of blending everything. I think because Canada doesn't have as long a history, that it was kind of easier to change. I think Canadians are sort of wired to be more collaborative, just because we had our British overlords for so long, and we have the Americans. So I don't know. There's just more of a openness to other ways of thinking and working with people, and so that was something that really influenced my music. Just suddenly hearing all these new kinds of music and really enjoying it, and working it into what I was doing. And what I started, really, I started in theater. And of course, theater, you don't get paid anything. And so basically you can do whatever the hell you want, because no one really has any leverage over you. So I was able to play with all these different kinds of music. And then when I ended up going into film, kind of bring those things with me. Indian, yeah, and there's a really large South Asian population, and yeah, for whatever reason, there's an affinity there, which I didn't have as a kid. Like I didn't know anything about India, or wasn't have any interest in it, but just, yeah, the more I learned about it, and yeah, I have an affinity with it, and I've spent, a fair bit of time there traveling and working. So yeah, it's ended up to be a part of my career as well as part of my personal life.
I've been to Toronto, and I love the multicultural aspect of it. I think it's an incredible asset to the city for sure. For those of you watching, you can ask questions. There's a Q&A button in Zoom that you can submit questions, which I'll get to towards the end of our chat. But just wanted to give people a heads up. Please send questions if you have any. If not, I've got plenty. I've been lucky enough to visit your studio in Los Angeles. And so how would you describe it to people who haven't had the chance to see it?
Well, Christian Marcus, who a mutual friend of the two of us, and she knew kind of both our tastes. She said, and I was talking about doing some new studio, and I want to design it, and she said, okay, you have to meet Christian. And Christian um, basically said to me, give me a year and a city, and I'll do the rest. And I said, Bombay, 1910. And he said, well, funny enough, that's pretty much the exact same city and date that I would pick. And he did this. Yeah, so it's this mashup. It's this kind of, there's British Raj elements, but then there's a lot of Indian elements. And yeah, he did just an amazing. I love going to my studio every day, and we composers spend so much time there that you better find it a fun and amusing place. So yeah, it's a really imaginative, lots of antiques, lots of but also it's a film set, because his world, he comes from doing film sets and doing bars. So everything, it looks like, wow, you've got mahogany paneling from 1800. No, that's actually concrete that's painted faux painted to look like, but it looks really convincing. And yeah, so it's a really beautiful thing. And there's all these things I've collected from all over the world. I've got this beautiful Turkish chandelier I bought in Istanbul, and things I bought in Morocco, and all kinds of stuff in my travels, which I was generally working in those places. So yeah, it's a place that kind of reminds all the places I've been and things that I've worked on.
Do you find that really fuels creativity to be surrounded by these kind of relics and to have that sort of movie set feeling to your studio?
Yeah, there's something about the movie set thing that it's just, all right, let's it, because the studio itself tells a story. It's got a backstory, and Christian literally invented this whole story about whose office this was. My office looks like an office from that time, and so it is a whole story. And so yeah, it gets you in the right frame of mind to be a storyteller, which is what a composer for film is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we do these amazing studio tours on Instagram Live, so maybe one of these days we can
I would
have you
love
do a
that.
live tour of your space next time you go there. Are you able to use it during COVID and all that sort of stuff? It's all okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I've been going every day. I mean, those of us who are in Hollywood know what a um, you know, it's just taken such a left turn in the last few years. It's really got just sad there. There's just been an explosion of homeless camps, just things that literally that I had not seen except in India until Hollywood in 2020, which is just kind of a real sad comment on a lot of things. But yeah, Hollywood is, I love Hollywood, the history of it, just being with where all, my building is 1929 and Charlie Chaplin had his office there and things like that. So there's all kinds of history, and that it's, yeah, the whole thing is just very inspiring. I find it's inspiring. It's also funny. I mean, there's something just a weird, you look out your window and you see tourists like trying to step over the human excrement and so on.
Yeah.
So
I
yes,
know.
come on over. You might want to do it in daylight hours. That's all.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah,
As
our
we know.
office is also down, yeah, on Hollywood Boulevard. And I always call it the greatest show on earth, Hollywood Boulevard, because you just look out the window and it could be anything.
You're in the Taft building?
No, it's called the Hollywood Building. It's Cahuenga and Hollywood Boulevard. 1932, I think was its
Okay.
build date. But anyways, we're here at Sundance virtually.
Yeah.
And I have to bring up, of course, one of the most iconic films at Sundance ever is Little Miss Sunshine. And
Yeah.
you were part of the music team. I just wanted to ask, like, do you remember the reception of it at the festival? Were you there presently when it was happening?
Yeah, it's one of those films that and when I was working on it, when you're working on a film, you're so close to it, and it's really hard to come up with a judgment of like whether this is good or not. You can enjoy a film immensely, and then you launch it on the world and people just don't connect, they don't get it. It's either the wrong time or for whatever reason. And lots of times there is that kind of um, you know, surprise. And that is a film that, and it was my wife who literally um, came to the opening with me and said at the end of it, "That is the best film you've ever worked on." I went, "Really? Like, is it?" I mean, I love it, but I love almost everything I work on, and you know, so I was surprised, but yeah, it had a feeling about it that was undeniable. You could hear it in the audience, you could feel it in the room, the electricity. It was a absolutely memorable screening, and something, yeah, something I'll never forget. And I'm it was a really, every film is such a different story, and that's what's fun about this job. And that again was just like we were talking about Monsoon Wedding. It took some strange turns, and it was again not something I was supposed to be on in a way. Sue Jacobs was a music supervisor. She was working with this brilliant band, Devotchka, and they had written all these songs. The filmmakers had heard them on the radio and kind of placed some of their songs in, and then got the band to sort of make some other songs and so on. But they were just having trouble like connecting the dots in some of the ways. So they asked me if I would come and work with Devotchka and do a score and kind of connect the songs. So yeah, what I did basically was write a score for them to play, using some of their themes, using a few things I wrote, but having them play the score. And there's just something that was so magical about a film about kind of a dysfunctional family and this band that has a kind of dysfunctional family sound to them, although they are the sweetest, nicest non-dysfunctional people, but there's something about those instruments, the combination of the rather strange combination of instruments, you know, that shouldn't really go together, just like the family, but somehow get together and make music. And it's got a earthiness to it, and it kind of, you know, there's mistakes and there's flat and sharp notes, but there's something just, it just fits the picture so beautifully. It's just one of those things that was magic. And yeah, it was really fun for me to work on and be part of them.
That makes me think of how you are quite a collaborator overall in your career. I mean, you have a great solo career, but of course, you've collaborated a lot with Rob Simonson and your brother, Jeff.
Yeah.
So, when do you feel it's the right time to call upon a collaboration, and when do you feel it's the right time to just do it yourself?
That's a good question. I think, yeah, I don't, that's interesting. You would think that I would know the answer to that right away because it's a decision I obviously make on every film in a way. But I think the thing that attracts me to collaborating is um, that, you know, ideally you have like interlocking circles of where the two composers can meet and the things that they have in common. But then there's the other part that you know, because everyone's different, everyone's strengths and weaknesses are different, people play different instruments. So like with my brother, we are obviously the same upbringing, we heard all the same music our parents played when we were little. We have the show tunes, we have the jazz, we have the classical, the choir, the um, fantasy rock, the progressive rock, like we have all that in common. um, and so we have that common language that's just programmed into us. But he's a guitar player and really, you know, spent most of his time in pop music, and I'm more in classical music. So you've got that great, that's a perfect combination where there's great overlap, but there's also, you know, there's things that I'm really good at, and there's things that he's really good at, and we know what those things are, and we can work them to our advantage. And it's the same with Rob, or you know, Nick Scalba, or Duncan, or all the other people that I've worked with. You know, that Amritha, there's like a lot of people that I've collaborated on films with. Jess Weiss, who I'm working with right now on Cinderella for Sony, and there's something um, really magical that can happen with collaborations. There's also just the you know, and look, collaborations, as everybody who's been in a band knows really well, there's those moments of ego clash. But I think the thing that I found is that anyone who's had a successful career as a film composer has really been able to control their ego and kind of understand where to put it. You need an ego to write music. You have to believe in yourself. You have to believe that I can do this, you know, better than anybody else right now. If you don't have that, you're going to be crushed by the adversity of people coming at you, telling you, no, this isn't right, this isn't right. And you have to be able to have that core of belief in yourself. But you also, you can't, if you have only that, you're doomed, because you have to be able to work with people. You have to hear somebody who says, that's completely wrong, and here's why I'm not feeling it. And you have to take that and not be offended, or you can't take it personally. You have to you know, work with them and figure out a meeting place, and hear the strength of what they're saying, and make, you know, really they're helping you. And that's how you have to make, spin it in a positive way, that they're helping you find the solution for what is the question of what is the score. And so when you're collaborating with someone, you often have those clashes where, you know, they're more interested in this aspect and you are more interested in this aspect. And then, but together you'll find that you'll probably come to a better place, like Paul and John, or whoever the collaborators are. So I think we're, you know, film composers are already wired to collaborate. and also it's just a lot more fun than when you walk out of a bad meeting and you've been the director and producer have crushed you, um, to be able to mock them behind their back with somebody else. It's just more fun.
Great,
So,
yes. Well, with your brother Jeff, not that it's a competition, but who studied music first? Who do you think was first to music?
well, I'm older by 6 years, kind of like the brothers in Onward, which, like we were saying, is another weird, just like fatalistic, film life and personal life just being weirdly similar and on top of each other. But yeah, so I started first, but you know, I think it's funny. I see it with my kids too. You play all kinds of music at them, and stuff bounces off them. And my dad, he was really into Gilbert and Sullivan, show tunes, jazz, and classical music. And, you know, some of those sunk in and some of them bounced off. And with my brother, slightly different ones sunk in and other ones bounced off. When we went on family car trips, it was Gilbert and Sullivan. Like that's what was in the tape player the whole trip. I have never on my own put on a Gilbert and Sullivan record.
No.
I mean, they're all in my head. I literally could sing them all right now, but I don't think Jeff has either. But so yeah, I was the first one to play piano. He didn't want to play piano. He wanted to play guitar.
Mm-hmm.
So he's even young. He started kind of going on his own path, and he was super focused and like he didn't put his guitar down. He got in trouble all the time because that's all he did. He'd watch TV and be playing and would be shut up, like, and so, he really took to it in a way that, an obsession really, but different from me. Like he certainly wasn't trying to copy me. But I'm sure he saw what I was doing but made it his own thing. So yeah, so I think, we we have that. That's why we have that ability to work together, because we are fairly different. The things that he likes in music are not the same things that I like. But when he says that's a good melody, I listen to that and I go, oh, okay, now I'm going to listen to it differently or more carefully, because I respect his opinion of what a good melody is. He has a different sense of it than me, but it's one that I, I respect and is worth listening to.
Yeah, that kind of answers a question that came in from the audience. Is asking if you feel that there's maybe more honesty in your feedback between you and Jeff, and are you more candid with each other because of your upbringing?
I mean, when you're writing a film score, there's really no time to be anything but candid. And you believe me, you get candid all day from the director. They're they're not they're not sugarcoating stuff. If it's not working for them, you're going to hear it. And then it's just a nonstop journey of different opinions that you have to make your way through. So the director, I love this, and then it'll go to someone else, and they'll say, oh no, this isn't what we had in mind. And so now you've got to make those two things jive. So we don't have time to sugarcoat stuff. So yeah, if I write something and he goes, I'm just not feeling it, like, okay, I kind of see what you're doing, and here's why. But you always have a reasoned, constructive discussion. So it's based, again, it's all about stepping outside your ego. Just leave it, when you need it, because you will need it when the door closes and you're by yourself. You need that to have the strength and courage to write music. But it's not a place in a discussion with a director when the director goes, I don't know, I'm just not feeling it. You can't say, well, you're wrong. Like, you just need to listen to it again. You're going to get it. You'll get it. That it's not going to work. It's not going to do anything. And I see people do that. It doesn't work. So you have to listen to them and take in the data. And so it's the same with my brother and I, or anyone I'm working with. Yeah, we're very honest. You're always respectful. And, I mean, we hardly fight, like, honestly. or I mean, sometimes when it's at the end of the process and you're exhausted, yeah, you get a little ragged around the edges, and the veneer starts to break down. But um, generally, no, we the job is so huge and overwhelming. Like what composers are called on to do is, it feels impossible every time. And I think that you that's kind of the biggest, that's the big picture. And so it's just like, okay, how can we get this done? It's like you're in a war zone. You're not going to be arguing about, you know, stuff. You're going to be like, this, we need to figure out how to do this and what's the logical, rational way to get where we need to go. So
Right, right. Well, we have you for just we're gonna be wrapping up in a little less than 10 minutes. So if anybody else has questions, please drop them in. Oh, here comes one. I often hear about the importance of a young composer to find niche and sound, find my niche and my sound. What do you think about that? Shouldn't I be able to do everything?
that is a great question. Um, I think you, in the order of things, you should find your own sound, but it's not even so much finding it as just being it and being what you already are. The thing that, okay, so when you're a kid, you took accordion lessons and you like country and western and or whatever, like that's who you are at your root. And you're all these other things. Yeah, you learned how to write, you know, Star Wars like John Williams, and you and band music and all, you like all that stuff got put on top. But at your core, like what is it that makes you different? And everyone is different from everyone else. And what made you different? What's different about your journey? What's unique to you? That really is what people want to hear. They want to hear the thing that is you. So don't, you like, that's the thing, you have to kind of turn your eyes inward on yourself. And in the same way that you have to when you're working on a film, turn your eyes on your characters and understand who they are, where they've been, how they got there. You have to do that for yourself and figure out what it is that you have that's unique. Yeah, you're going to have to be versatile in this work, but it is super, it's vital that you have something honest to say. And the honesty comes from your own journey and where you've been and what music you actually love and what you heard growing up and what you feel and what instruments you play. So the more unique you are, for sure, the more honest it's going to be, and the more people will respond to it. And now the trick is to find an outlet for that, that you can be true to yourself. And that's where, you know, if you should search out filmmakers or people making work that is something that means something to you, that strikes a chord in you. Those are the people to try to work with, and somewhere where your voice can be honest and be heard. But your voice should be honest and heard in everything you do. So even if you are doing a conventional or doing some versatile thing, you still should have a unique core to it. And I think that's just spending enough time before you kind of launch yourself into the world, enough time working on that, on being true to yourself.
Absolutely. For those that might not be composers in the audience, but more filmmakers, what is a good example of a way for a director to give notes that help you do your job best?
That's a great question. I I always ask directors to talk in the language that they understand best. Again, it's like being honest to yourself. Like don't don't talk about the music, talk about the feeling, talk about the story. Where are we in the story arc? What do we want to be revealing, or what do we want to be submerging? What do we want to bring out emotionally? What temperature are we? Where is this character? What are we writing? What is this cue about? Who, which character or what event is this cue about? As opposed to, it's too, you know, it's too sad. Well, you know, or God, even the worst thing, like, can you go to a major key here or something? Like, I would prefer you don't talk about music, even if you're literate in music. I would prefer you say this character has this on their surface, but underneath, this is what they're feeling, and this is where they've been, and this is what I want the music to help draw out. So talk about story, talk about emotion. That's what I ask.
Wonderful. Well, we have time for one more question, and so I'm dying to know, where do you keep your Oscar?
Um, it's been in a lot of odd places, but it is right now. Yeah, it's too bad I'm not in my studio. I could give you a little walk around right now, but it's there in my office, which is the um, my Christian's kind of made up character of who this person is. So well, I'll have to show you that office at some point, but yeah, it's in there, and yeah, I've definitely been blessed as far as awards. But that's a whole discussion, I guess, that we'll have to do next year.
Yes, of course. I know there's so many things that we didn't touch upon. Obviously, Life of Pi and all the things that you've done in between in television and Pixar. You've done so much. But we're getting asked for the award discussion, so we'll schedule that for another time. But yeah, I just want to thank you so much for joining us here at Film Music House. Thank you everybody for tuning in. We have more keynotes. We have Dan Romer tomorrow, Rob Simonson we're going to have on the 3rd. Yeah, we're going to talk about 500 Days of Summer, which I know you guys collaborated on. So
that was a lot of fun. Well, give both those guys virtual hugs for me. They're just, yeah, kind of our close to Hollywood neighbors. So
yeah, absolutely.
that was
Well,
fun, man.
yeah, again, thank you so much for doing this. Thank you everybody for tuning in, and we'll catch up again later.
Stay warm.